Hi, everybody. I thought I would take you through a little tutorial on how to set up your final tutoring session. So first, make sure that your people know when your last session is coming so that they can be mentally prepared. So I'm going to talk you through a few things that we discussed in class, and then I hope this is helpful in conceptualizing how to make that a meaningful experience for you and for your person. So first, let's just review here the difference between summative and a formative assessment, just as kind of a reminder. So this has a benefit for you and for your students, and that's really something that you want to hold on to. That even though you think this is just something my professor is making me do, by the way, don't say that. You need to own your decisions in your agency when you're in these sessions. But it is for you and it is for your tutee or your student as well. Everybody needs that sort of closure and some time to reflect on what in fact they learned. So the formative assessments are you're monitoring your students' progress, you're checking for understanding, you're trying to respond to what they need. You've been doing this in all of your sessions because you watch them write, you watch their facial expressions, you can see if they're engaged, you can see what's easy for them, what's difficult for them, what they're excited about, what they're not. That's formative assessment. You're always doing that. And for the students, they are also recognizing this is a strength, this is a weakness, this is I'm improving, this is my goal, this is how I'm evaluating my learning. And so when you ask them questions, what do you think? How did this feel? What are you proud of? All of those are formative kind of things. The summative assessment, which we talked about last night, is to measure whether the student has met your learning outcomes. So at the beginning of your tutoring, you said, what do you want to work on? What do you want to get better at? Also, you noticed in their writing, this is something that I want to work on to help them get stronger, more confident. So it could be skills, it could be a genre, it could be confidence, it could just be kind of getting used to their writing life again. And it's not for helping them now, but it's helping you as a future teacher to make changes in the future. So did they learn the things that you were trying to help them do, or did they get better at the things you were practicing? And if so, yes, you continue doing that. If not, maybe you make some adjustments in how you approach things next time. I never do things the same every year. I'm always changing them because I realize I could have done that better. I could have made that clearer. Okay, but it is also for the students. So it is for your student to have a moment to see what in fact they did accomplish. And many of your people were writing a lot in every session. So they have several things that they've written in that notebook. So notice, these are things that didn't exist and would never have existed if you didn't work together. And now they have poems, they have stories, they have essays, right? You've also had some laughs, you've had some great conversations. You've learned about each other's lives. Those are all things you want to bring to the forefront to help them understand overall that they've been writing, that they've been writers, that they've been doing great things. And then they're going to understand and remember, you're going to help them remember. These are the things that we touched on. And maybe we just kind of touched on them, or we just practiced or introduced you to them and you don't have a mastery of them. But let's remember, these are the things that you learned. So it's for you to see how they learned it and notice that you taught them something or explored something, and for them to recognize and remember that as well. So summative assessment is for you and it's for your students, okay? So when we're working on your summative assessment, it can look a couple different ways. So you can do, you can create one of the rubrics, a single point rubric, or a analytic rubric or a holistic rubric for a piece of writing that they've done or that they do during your session. So maybe you do your write-in that's narrative, and then you use a rubric to see whether or not they did the narrative things that you taught. You can have them do some writing, and again, compare that writing to something that they did earlier on. And then you can say, what do you notice about how the story that you wrote 5 weeks ago is different than the story that you wrote today? What are you doing differently because we worked on narrative, or we worked on infinitives, or we looked at anaphora, or things like that. You can have them create a presentation. Maybe you want them to make something that might take a lot of time. You can have them do a portfolio. So maybe they make a table of contents out of their notebook and then reflect on that. These are some other things that you might do when you're like teaching in your own class with like a lot of people. But I think that you can have them do an exam, which is like maybe a Kahoot or a little quiz. I'm not a big fan of those, but sometimes they can be fun. And then a little self-evaluation, have them talk to you about what they notice, what they think, kind of thing. So these are all different kinds of end of the unit summative assessments that you could do. So I'm going to offer you a couple examples and one way that you could do your end of session. But you don't have to do it this way. I'm just going to show you as an option, and then you can make it your own. Okay, so for your final session, here's my suggestion for using your time together: to spend 15 minutes with the write-in, 20 minutes on the self-perception survey, 10 to 15 minutes doing a skills or concept quiz or activity, and then 5 minutes doing celebrations. This is my suggestion. So let me break it down. So for your last tutoring session, you would spend 15 minutes with your write-in. So as you've been doing, introduce the ideas. When you're introducing the ideas, again, because I know some of you aren't doing this, but I really wish you would. This is an argument mode. Say the word mode. This is an informational mode. This is a narrative mode. When you do your narrative, remember that you can have a lead with a sensory setting or action, or bring us right into dialogue. When you do an argument, remember you want to kind of start with the scenario and move on one hand, on the other hand, and give us some examples. For informational, you want to start with some sort of lead, which is similar to the argument, like setting up a purpose or the problem, and then move into a solution or a cause and move into an effect and give lots of examples and tell a story. So those are your 3 modes. Choose one. And maybe you want to have them choose one that they did at the beginning of the semester or the term. Then, so that's 5 minutes talking about that. Then write for 10 minutes. Give them 10 minutes. Write. Try to give them enough time to get to the beginning, middle, and end so they could finish something, right? So, and that way, again, if you have it on your slide, all those different parts, they can keep referring back to it and keep working from beginning, middle, end. So they're going to have a full draft, 10 minutes of writing, and you're going to compare that 10 minutes of writing with something else, right? That maybe that they did at the beginning, or that you can refer back to. Because maybe you're going to say, okay, let's go back to that 10 minutes of writing we just did and add some infinitives and add some narrative, some anaphora, and add point to your tone, point to your mood. So you might use that piece of writing for a couple things during this session, but you're going to have 10 minutes. That's a lot of writing can happen. Then do a share and celebrate. You share yours, they share theirs. You do lots of celebration. Remember, how do you listen? How do you celebrate? Pointing and mirroring, and make sure you're teaching them that again, over and over, so that they know how to be a good writing member of a community. So that's 15 minutes of it. And that's been a summative assessment. Why is it a summative assessment? Because you're comparing that experience in your 5th or 6th or 8th session to the one that you had in session 1. Not right in that moment, but now you have data. You have the pre-data and the post-data. And now you can look at these 2 things and say, how did it go? Or maybe just the experience of doing it with your person has improved, or they seem more confident, or they have more to say, or they find the flow. All of that kind of stuff. So 15 minutes, and now you have a writing sample. The second part is to do your post-writer self-perception survey. And since you did one at the beginning of the semester, why not both of you do this at the same time? So have 2 Google Docs ready to go. You can use your Google Doc from last time, and they can use their Google Doc from the time before. Just use the same one and have them use a different color. and highlight it. If it's the same color or at the same level, that's fine. Maybe it's gone up, like we hope that it's improved, right? So again, explain that you did this before, explain why. I know some of you in your video said my professor told me I had to, but why is that? Because we know that our beliefs about writing inform how we write. And our past experiences about our writing inform how we write. It either makes us better, or it makes us turn off, or it makes us have all these different beliefs that might interfere with our potential. So that's why we did that survey at the beginning. You remember back, you did it too, and we had that conversation. So revisit it. You revisit yours, they revisit theirs, discuss your scores, give them time to score it themselves. Give them the agency and the power to do that so it's not some mystery. And you score yours, put them up on the screen, do that together. Have conversations about what everything means. Don't skip over it. Spend time thinking about it, talking about it. Wow, my confidence has gone up. My awareness of others has gone down. Whatever it is, use that. And that is your summative assessment. That's another part of it because it's the ending. And you have something from the beginning to compare with the ending. And there you go. So 20 minutes, you're going to need a lot of time for that, maybe 25. Okay, then do one more summative assessment. This is your third part. This is where you would do any of the skills that you taught or language that you taught. So you can do this a couple different ways. You can make that Google form and say, what are 3 things you want to think about when you start writing? Audience, right? Purpose, and genre, if that's what you taught them. What is an infinitive sentence? And you give them a couple options and they pick it. What's the difference between tone and mood? And you give them a couple options and they choose it. Or you might say, here's a sample. Tell me what is what. And you put that in your survey. Or you might not want to do this survey at all. And you just say, let's open up your notebook and point to some things. And you use the comment feature and ask them to annotate it. That's going back to the things that you taught them, right? Or you might say, let's just go through each week. So this week we wrote a sonnet. What do you remember about writing a sonnet? That's it. And they could label the parts and go back to it. So that's one way of doing it. But you can also put it into a survey with those kinds of questions in there, and that's great. I love that in the survey that you can also have them write. Look at that last part. End with questions about you. Give them an opportunity to evaluate you. Was I on time? Was I prepared? Was I friendly? Was I funny? What makes a good teacher? Do you think I'd be a great teacher? Or even better than anything else, to say, what advice do you have for me in becoming a teacher? And have that be one of the questions, right? Ask them, what was your favorite part about it? Or what do you remember? And those kind of questions. So any of that can go in that survey real quick. And then pull up the survey and have a conversation about it. Ask follow-up questions, try to understand some of the things that they were saying. So debrief with that. Don't just put it aside, because this is your chance to have that conversation with them. Okay, and here's the last part. It's about them. It's about them. Okay, they need your attention. They've been without a teacher. They've been without a classroom. They've been without human contact. They need your attention. It's not about you. Not about you. It's about them. And they have had this great time with you that nobody else has. And you know stuff about them that nobody else knows because you've been in that session. So tell them what you noticed about them as human beings. Tell them what you appreciate about them. Tell them what you've enjoyed about their writing. Tell them what you think is interesting about what they think about the world. Tell them that you appreciate all of these things and that they're going to be fine, that they're going to be great in college, that they're going to go on to do something wonderful. And really put it on them, and then thank them for trusting you with the experience, and tell them what they've taught you as a teacher. Let them know that they've had some impact on you, that it's been reciprocal, right? That they've helped you just like you've been trying to help them. That's why it's been sort of this mentoring situation. So I really want to encourage you to, I'm just going to go back one more time here, spend a lot of time with that write-in so they have plenty of time to get through an idea. invite them to use the language of a writer, mode, genre, leads, introductions, elaboration, figurative language, sensory language, grammar, mechanics, conventions, white space, lines, stanzas, names of the genres. Try to get them talking about these things. The self-perception, 20 minutes, might even take longer. Do it with them. Have a conversation. Talk about what we believe, our past experiences, the way we compare to each other, our idea about what a writer is. So much of the way they came to you is thinking a writer is school-based literary analysis, and that's all that a writer is. And I don't like that, and therefore I'm not a writer. But you're helping them understand things in different ways. And then 10 to 15 minutes on whatever skills and concepts that you taught, and then ending with celebrations and gratitude. So friends, I hope that this has been really helpful for you. I hope that thinking about these sessions has been really great, and that you're going to have a really great time. And so I want to say one more thing before I go away, because I want to just kind of debrief with you about how to use your writer profile. So I'm just going to do that real quick. Okay, so here's a sample writer profile. Remember that it all needs to be filled out. Scores and everything, so you have something to compare it to. These, if you did not use them, just highlight them and delete. This is the snapshot, just a quick snapshot of the person. That doesn't really make sense. This should be your tutoring notes. Remember that we're thinking about powerful writing pedagogy from Nadia Bahizadeh. Okay, so you have your notes here. This part, thinking about what you did in each session, is going to help you design your summative assessment. If you do the Google survey or something, look into your notes about what you worked on with each session. So the first session was mostly just quick writing and your self-perception, so you probably didn't work on anything. Maybe the second section, getting to know them as a writer, how I write, where I write, what I write, whatever you taught them. This you put directly into your Google survey because these are things you taught them. So it makes sense that you would assess that. In session 3, I did the heart map and we were noticing where we can go for ideas and thinking about writing routine. So my question on the survey might be, what are some things you can write about when you need something to write about? What's the value of having a notebook? What did you learn about yourself in the writing routine? Or when do you like to write? If that's something that you taught them. Maybe you taught them about the personal narrative and how to write a narrative scene. So maybe in your session, you talked about these things. So show them a narrative scene and have them label those parts, or have them go to a narrative scene that they wrote and show you those different things, or ask them to revise something. Take something that you wrote before and now let's revise it. In session 5, maybe you talked about the rhetorical triangle. So maybe in your Google form, it's a little quiz about the rhetorical triangle, or you ask them to pull out a piece of writing and point to the audience, the writer, and the topic, or something like that. Maybe you taught them about adding evidence to an argument piece, like how to insert a quote. So maybe you say, here's a quote, here's a piece, show me how to insert it. And you have that in your Google form or in Google Doc. So the things that you did in your sessions are what go into your Google Doc, okay? And in your post-tutoring, the needs and goals for tutoring, you don't really need this. And I don't think you need these columns here. So let's delete this. I'm going to click on it and delete columns. Good. Okay, so interview. And you probably didn't do another interview, or I guess you did, right? So If you do ask those questions at the end, this might be what they told you about, you know, what it means to be a good teacher. So you write that in here. So that was the results of your thing. If the write-in was a narrative, you write this here. If the write-in that they do is analytic, you write that here. If the one that they did is informational, write it here. So you can just, let's say I don't need this one, so I'm going to delete it. And they wrote a narrative. So I'm going to say, in comparing the first narrative here's what I noticed. And maybe you can put link to first one and link to final, something like that. And then just explain, what did you notice? It's longer, it's more detailed, or maybe you just noticed that they were smiling during it or whatever. The writer self-perception. So we have this one. This is post. And maybe I'm going to go up here and just copy and paste it so they're together. This is the pre. Okay. And then I'll have the post, and then I'm going to say what we noticed. Something like that. And if you did any of this, you would fill it out. If not, let's just delete it, right? Oh, wait, let's see. We have this. Oh, you know what? I think I would change this one to the skills post assessment. Yeah, how about that? Because if you did a skills post assessment, I would say the topics we uncovered or explored over the 5 weeks was here's the form. Here's what I learned. So I would just type in here, like elaborating on what you noticed, what surprised you, what seems interesting, all of that kind of thing. And then I'm going to delete this row. Okay. So here's my end of tutoring. I had a conversation. We have the writing sample, we have the self-perception, and we have the post skills assessment. What do we learn? What do we think about me as a teacher? Okay, so now you have everything that you need here for you to write the letter to Dr. Ajay or Ms. Mano, and also to write your own reflection. So you've already started kind of doing that reflection by filling out that form. All right, so that was a really long video, but I think there's a lot of stuff in there that I hope is really helpful for you. Please let me know if you have questions or concerns or how I can continue this program. Bye.